We're having a look at the ZvZ opener. That is the 4 queen drop with upgrades. Usually I go for Ling upgrades into Mutalisk, but you can also do it into Roaches or whatever you really enjoy doing. But I just kind of want to explain to you how the build functions, and I'm going to do that using 2 different games that I played. They're both against 6.3k, 6.4k Zergs. So they should be good opponents, and the build has a couple key factors that I would like to explain so you can open safely, and it also has a lot of options for you as to how you want to play it out. What is important is that you open either hatch gas pool or gas pool hatch. I don't think technically you could also go for like a 12 pull into 4 queens and drop them then, but I don't quite know how the timing works out. I never tested it, but it actually would make sense. I usually open with hatch gas pool though, as you can see here. Then I build the 4 to 6 links defensively. This time I'm going for the 2 links. Doesn't really matter how many you build. You should build some just to scout, like is he going for a link baning attack. But usually nowadays you can see whether he gets creep or not anyways, and it's not that much of a problem. What I did this game was, as soon as I had 100 gas in the bank, I started link speed, stopped mining gas, and then when my queen in the main was done, I started mining gas again. I then built 2 additional queens after my first 2 queens. I moved both of them to the natural and I inject with both of them. Right now I need to keep a couple links here as well, just to stay safe. You always have to check how many units your opponent is sending across the map. He's going for a standard 3rd hatchery, which is all fine and dandy for me to see. Once my next 2 queens are done, I pull all of them down here. I start overlord speed at my 3rd base, add my natural, and I start another queen in my main. He gets a scout on me right now. He sees no lair, so he probably thinks that's a little bit weird. He doesn't see that I'm doing anything, he just sees a lot of queens, which should be a good telltale sign for him. You should start the evolution chamber earlier than I did. As soon as you have your 75 minerals after you start overlord speed, you should get the evolution chamber. Also get a baning nest after the evolution chamber just to stay safe. And you can also use the banings offensively. Well, after the queen is done in my main, I usually should also start another queen at the natural or another queen in the main. And I inject the hatchery in the main with one of the 4 queens, so I just keep the injects rolling. I take an additional gas and then I morph a speed overlord as soon as I can. This game I'm dealing with heavy pressure. Like so far you didn't really see much of this going on, but I'm being pressured pretty heavily by links. So I'm spamming a lot of links right now and also need some banings to defend. And I'm trying to maneuver my queens across the map. You cannot always go across the map straight away with your queens, but this game I felt like I could. What is important for me is that I get a +1 carapace upgrade quickly. I'm also taking an additional 3rd base right now because I figured I would lose the other one. What I'm doing right now is I'm starting my offensive push. So I got the 4 queens headed towards his main base. I got links at his 3rd base and also got a small link bane attack at his natural. It's important that if you play this build that you attack him at multiple fronts at once, because it makes it really hard for him to respawn, even if your attacks kind of fall flat. Right now I have the 4 queens in his main. I immediately put down a tumor. Tumors are nice, tumors are good to have. I'm spamming links right now, like further links. I started lair as soon as I had 100 gas again after the evolution chamber. Keep in mind I got the 2 gases, I went up to 3 gases total. Not really droning much right now, I'm slightly behind in the drone count. But I had an income because he cannot mine from his main base. Right here you should transfuse your queens if possible. I keep being aggressive with the links, because right now he had to move all his units into the main base to deal with the queens. You can also like maneuver them around with the overlord. And because he had to maneuver all his units to the main base, I attacked the 3rd base with the links. And then I could also attack him in the natural right now. I pick up the queens and then I drop them over there again, or maybe I go drop them into the natural, I don't know. But it makes it really hard for him to keep mining. As soon as my lair is done, I started the spire, I'm getting a 4th gas, I'm droning up just a little bit. I keep on pressuring him though. Like if I can kill his 3rd base for example, I'm gonna be in a really good spot. He has a decent amount of roaches going on. It's important that you don't lose the drop overlord to queens, which can happen pretty quickly because queens have an insane range. Right now, I still pressure him here. I got more lings headed in. Snipe the queen so I can no longer snipe my overlord. Trying to attack him at the third base. Spire is on the way. Droning up, droning here, droning there. +1 carapace helps my lings survive against the roaches. That's the most important reason. You can also just transfuse the overlord if anything happens. Dropping some links in his main base as well while all this is going on. It's really important that you constantly put pressure on your opponent. It's really the biggest strength of this build. Now, once the Spire is done, I started Mutalisks, and with the Mutalisks, he doesn't really have an answer to the Mutalisk because he has no insane amount of queens on the map because I kept sniping his queen. So I just put on a lot of pressure right now. We're about even in worker count. I even dropped my queens here, trying to connect on the Spore Crawler with the Banelings. If I can snipe the spores, then that's obviously really good for me. The queens are transfusing each other to stay alive a little bit longer. And then now I have an insane amount of Mutalisks because I kept building links to spend my money on the minerals. And I kept building queens to... I kept building drones so I can mine more gas. So with the 6 gases that I do have, I'm able to produce a lot of units right now. A lot of Mutalisks, more importantly. Once again, trying to connect on the Spore Crawlers, and if the Spore Crawler is dead, the Mutalisks will kill the rest. He doesn't really have a nice amount of units anymore now, as I said before. Cannot keep up with me in this game and is going to fall flat on his face and die. It is definitely possible to straight up counter this build, and it can also be kind of hard to deal with a lot of pressure at your base. It's kind of stupid for the other Zerg to run into Lingbane Queen, like Mass Queen though, with his own units, because it's really hard to trade favorably against that. In this game, there wasn't that much my opponent could do because he was pulled apart really early on and didn't regain control over his main base for a really long time, which allowed me to stay ahead economically while taking almost no damage. But this is like the first game. There's another game that I want to show you. It will go somewhat similarly. I played a lot of games with this build, but this is it. Against Risky. This was one of the first games that I won with this build. I don't win every game because usually what happens is I just get countered kind of early on and fall apart, which is really bad. Like if I just get attacked by Baneling, I oftentimes lose the game straight up. So I'm going to go through this replay a little bit quicker. Can we have the replay? Yeah, I'm gonna send you the replay, best fills. I'm also going to publish a guide on it on spawning tool, like tomorrow most likely, if you're interested in that. Once again, stopped mining gas, put drones back into the gas. I took out the second gas here because I was supply stuck and I wanted to get the queens out. Going for 4 queens, building the evolution chamber. But it's like everything looks pretty much the same as last game, mining 2 gases, saturating 2 mineral lines, being attacked here a little bit by links, but nothing too terrible going on. Queen Dropper Lord is morphed, he is going home. I keep spamming a couple links here to attack him, taking the third base, heading across the map, and now is where things get a little bit more interesting again, right? I'm trying to take out his third base and I'm also trying to drop him at the same time with my links. I'm going for the lair. His lair is already finished, so he definitely has attack advantage on me right now. And because he has so many units in his main base, I can't really do much with my queen drop. But that's not all we can do here, right? We can do multi-pronged attacks, and he has to defend every base at the same time. Wow, that was close. So I'm trying to go in here with my Banes. Once again, I'm going for the Carapace upgrade, which helps my links against his roaches and against his links. I'm getting pretty decent Baneling connections here on him. I'm still behind in supply, keep that in mind. Now he lost a lot of links and now the queen drop happens in the main base. The queen gets sniped immediately and I pull the queens into the mineral line and he starts using drones. At the same time I keep spamming links. I'm getting the spire, saturating my additional gases. Slightly behind in gas, slightly behind in supply, slightly behind in workers and supply. But keep in mind, most of his supply is roaches, which just cost a lot of supply, so yeah. Kinda messed up there a bit, lost the queen. I keep pressuring him here though, with links at his third base, and he's investing a lot of money into roaches. He doesn't really get scouting intel on me right now. He knows I have a third base, but that doesn't really tell him too much, because he doesn't see the drone count at the third base. He just knows I have a maximum of 1 gas, and that is, well, that is something, but it's not really much. I'm just trying to find holes in his defense. Once again, I find a hole, and I immediately drop my queens again, started harassing him here, transfusing my queens, and he keeps losing workers in his main base, and that's really, really good for me. My spire is almost done, and while all this is going on, he cannot respond to the spire, because if he would move across the map, the links and queens would just completely destroy him. Then I'm also trying to poke at him over here. Keep in mind, not all of these trades are really good, as I mentioned before. You don't always need to take a good trade. Sometimes it's enough to just distract your opponent a little bit and like maybe make him doubt himself. The queens are starting to go down here. The drop overlord is not really doing as hot anymore as it did before. He has a small amount of roaches here. I'm trying to poke a hole into his defense yet again, but I can't really get anything done. Now my spire is done. Around the 8-minute mark is when my mutals start popping. Slightly behind in workers still, but he doesn't have an answer to the Mutalisk, so let's see how that plays out. Also getting the melee upgrades, I'm going to stay on links. I could have also transitioned to roaches, but because he built so many roaches, I didn't really feel like transitioning to roaches would do much of a favor to me. Once again, trying to drop him here, keeping everything alive. But eventually my queens start dying, and now my Mutalisks arrived, so I'm trying to get control over the map right now with my Mutas. I also have a decent amount of links that I'm still pumping out. I got my 4th hatchery on the way, but so does he. And I just have a lot of Mutas, because I kept mining gas that I never spent, much like last game, while constantly harassing him with mineral units. He used gas units to defend against mineral units, which is okay, but it's not really what you want usually. I'm trying to get a connection on the spore crawler again. Couldn't quite get there. But I eventually managed to take out the spore crawler anyways, and he just cannot get out enough hydras to really deal with my Mutalisks, because he had to invest so much money into the roaches. So he lost all his units, he lost the game, and that's kind of the goal of this build. I basically just opened with 4 queens. Can use them defensively. Then I go over to the offense, start dropping him in his main, attacking him in the third base at the natural, morphing links, banes here. Could use another overlord to drop links and banes into his base. Like, you're not limited to just 1 drop overlord, so you could also use multiple drop overlords if that is what you wish. But yeah, that is how I play this. And as I said, I'm gonna publish a guide on spawning tool in the coming days. If you're interested in that, you can go read up everything that I talked about here. I think the Mutalisk transition is the smartest one, because they usually, as I said, invest a lot of money into roaches or into other units that are not hydras or mutas. So you can usually get into a really good position. But yeah, that is it for this guy.